Good afternoon, and welcome to Money Matters. I'm your host, Jeff Watkinson, broadcasting live from Malvern, Pennsylvania. I'm very happy and excited about today's show. I am partnered with co-host Steve Rosenberg, who is the founding principal of the GSD Group. And I'm going to give you a little clue what GSD stands for. The G stands for get. The D as in David stands for done. So get blank done. I said this before when I hosted with Steve a month or so ago. He's a Mr. Fix-It. He's a consultant. He's a chief operating officer. If the city of Philadelphia were to have the Olympics, were to host the Olympics, Steve would be on the short list to consult. Welcome aboard, Steve.
Jeff, great to see you, and thanks for having me on again.
Terrific. We have a very special guest, Joe Zeff, creator of Joe Zeff Design. He'll be coming up shortly, and we're going to have a very interesting chat on storytelling, social media, and AR, Augmented Reality. But first, Steve and I wanted to discuss AI, artificial intelligence, in the sports in the sports industry. And let's start there. I mean, we've heard this term AI. I read about it in the news all the time. I'm focused on municipal bonds, quite frankly. What is happening with regards to AI with sports right now, and where are we going with it?
Well, Jeff, in Philadelphia, you have to be careful when you say AI because people think about Allen Iverson. So he sort of predated AI. But AI is transforming all industries, and I'm sure it's going to have or already has some impact on the municipal bond industry. But in sports, when you think about the entire landscape of sports, AI has already penetrated things like sports gambling. Why? People like you and I are able to get on FanDuel or DraftKings, and we have an abundance of data that is in front of us that has been parsed through AI. AI is able to take millions and millions of data points and put it out so that we can decide if we like the Sixers -1.5, if we like the over, because all of that's been able to be culled together and we're able to make much quicker decisions, right? If you think about last night going into the Sixers game, Doc Rivers is able to analyze the Celtics moves, right? If Jason Tatum dribbles first with his left hand, what is he typically going to do? And in the old days, they would have had to spend hours and hours and hours in the film room breaking down film. Today, they can probably run that through ChatGPT, which is something everybody's heard about since the beginning of the year. And they're able to get the data on, is Jason Tatum going to go left? Is he going to go right? Is he going to step back and pull up a jump shot? Where is Robert Williams going to set up to rebound? Is he going to be an offensive rebounder? So from a data set, it's able to bring forth to us information in a very timely manner. Then when you think about the ability to analyze things like, say, your swing or your shot. There are a number of companies that have already come to market that are in what I would call the sports tech business that could not have come to market without AI, right? There's companies like Diamond Kinetics based in Pittsburgh, where our guest is from. That
Excuse me, one sec. What was the name of that firm?
Diamond Kinetics. And it's a company that's in the baseball space that all they do is they have trackers that analyze your bat speed, your swing. Are you level? Are you too high? And this is a company that's backed by the Pirates owner and other people because they understand that it's not just enough to go in and be filmed, but you want to know, is your shoulder too high? Is it too low? What's your bat speed, right? And it's all about the science. I don't know if you're a golfer, Jeff, but I've just recently picked up.
How'd you guess, Steve? Great guess.
Right. So I take lessons indoors because I live in Center City. And when I go and I swing my club, the golf coach is telling me about my swing speed, the ball trajectory, and all these things. All I want to know is, did the ball get up in the air and do I look like I know how to golf? But AI has penetrated all of this. To me, though, the most important potential development is around fan engagement, because teams have the ability to now track all of us. Where are we watching? How are we watching? Are we on our mobile devices? Are we on TV? If we're in the stadium, are we in our seats? Are we at the snack stand? Where are we? So that the teams have all of this rich data so that they can then work with their advertisers and their sponsors to serve us other ads or information that we may want. Or do we want a beer? Are we always getting a beer in the 6th inning? Do we need popcorn to go with our beer? So all of this data is just going to change not just the sports industry, but this show is called Money Matters, and AI is already penetrating all of these industries.
I find that fascinating. I mean, I have watched several NBA playoff games, and the amount of staff around the head coach. I mean, they have to be digesting information on the fly, right? I mean, from
Absolutely.
the places, like telling the coach, hey.
They know that, Jaylen Brown, if he sets up over here, we have to run our offense this way. And again, in the old days, they still do watch film because there still is something about the eye test, right? It can't just all be about numbers. Even when you think back to the movie Moneyball and how the Oakland A's really transformed the sport of baseball, there's still something about the eye test, right? And a guy can either shoot a jump shot or not shoot a jump shot. No amount of data is going to make that person shoot a better jump shot on the fly, but we're going to know if he sets up on the left or if he sets up on the right or where he might go. All of this is able to be tracked right away. They even have balls now for practice that measure how many dribbles you take before you shoot or how many times your hands are on the ball. I don't know what you do with all that data because at the end of the day, I want to get on the court, dribble, pass, and shoot, but coaches and scouts are measuring all of this so that they know what players best fit into their systems.
Wow, I find it fascinating.
It's crazy, right? It's unbelievable.
A live wager on a basketball game, up and back. That guy just got fouled. That guy made a technical foul.
Right.
That's all AI giving you a live line with your app.
But AI also lets you now it's changed the dynamic of the sports wagering because you can now wager during the game. You used to just bet before the game and you sat back and watched. Well, now after they shoot the first shot or throw the first pitch or catch the first pass, you can continue to bet up until the game ends. The lines continue to change, whether it be the over and unders or the point spreads or whatever it's going to be. And the AI is feeding that data into FanDuel and into DraftKings and into BetMGM or whatever the app is that you're using, or if you're at the casino in Atlantic City or Las Vegas or wherever you might be, wherever there's a sports book, they're getting this real-time data that's changing the lines, and people are betting up to 10, 15, 20 seconds to go in a game and still making wagers. The handles, which is the amount of money that's bet on these apps, we're talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars, and we've just started to scratch the surface. We're at the 5-year anniversary now where sports gambling became legal outside of Las Vegas. This week is the 5th anniversary, and I can't even imagine, Jeff, what the next 5 years are going to look like.
It's astronomical seeing odds of winning the game in the 3rd inning and now in the 8th inning. And now they show it, and you can. It's all based around the movement of money and gambling.
Exactly.
Now it's time to ask the question from the audience. This is from Grace Thomas in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. What is the highest paying sport in the world?
Well, that might come as a surprise, Grace, but it's actually the NBA. The average basketball player makes over almost $10.5 million a year, which is more than double number 2, which is the NFL, which is almost $4.5 million per player, followed very closely by the Premier League in soccer, which is almost $4.5 million. So it's the NBA.
If you have a question for Money Matters TV, here's how to send in your question.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
Welcome back to the show. We're very excited to have our next guest on, Joe Zeff, who is the founder and principal of Zeff Design. And, you know, he's based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And it's a lot of what he's doing is storytelling. This is a creative agency. I was always taught that stories sell. When I was in business school, you know, I was told, do a PAR statement, problem, action, result. I'm very excited to have Joe on today. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing really great. Greetings from Pittsburgh, guys.
Thank you so much. Well, tell us about Zeff Design, a little bit about your background and what you're helping companies do.
You bet. Well, I got my start in journalism. I was an editor at the New York Times. I was the graphics director of Time magazine. And it was in both of those jobs that I learned how to take content and make it understandable, make it easier to remember. So leverage that experience to open Zeff Design. So started working with many companies to help them make their content, their products, their services more understandable, not just to their employees, not just to their customers, but to press and to the entire world. That resulted in some major engagements when the iPad came out. My company was the first to create some of the world's greatest storytelling apps. So we created apps for Notre Dame football. We created apps for the Super Bowl. We created apps for JP Morgan. And now today I'm working with Fortune 50 companies that are challenged to make their content, to make their products, their services understandable to a general audience.
Joe, give the audience, because you do have such an incredible background in storytelling, and not storytelling in the Winnie the Pooh type way, but you have had a steadfast belief in storytelling as it relates to business. Again, from your writing days to your design days to the app days. Why do you believe that storytelling is such a differentiator for companies?
Because at the end of the day, somebody makes a buying decision based on one sentence. And that sentence might be, I'm going to buy this product because it will help me save money, or this product will help me to be more efficient. And typically companies gather screens and screens of PowerPoints with one bullet point after another to make that case, to deliver that one sentence in the mind of their audience, where stories do that. Like for me to better understand how a product may make me more efficient, maybe to tell the story of a customer who's able to accomplish more as a result of that product. So stories stay with us much longer than the barrage of bullet points that typically populate websites and PowerPoint decks and PDFs and all of the different ways that we communicate within companies and to our audiences.
That one sentence, we're trying to get down to that one sentence. What are some of the different ways that you help companies tell their stories, or I guess different mediums to tell their stories? What's been effective?
Yeah, I try to encourage clients to take their PowerPoints and PDFs and rethink whether or not that's the best way to deliver their messaging. A lot of times a way to enhance that messaging is through interactivity. The idea that that content may live on a website where somebody can consume that content at their own pace. That content may live in an app where somebody can engage at a deeper level. That content may be distributed through social media where we can engage with our audience in a real-time basis. And the way that I'm really excited about telling stories in 2023 is through augmented reality.
So let's talk about that for a minute. We just spent a few minutes talking about artificial intelligence, which has been around for a while, as has AR, but you have been a leader around AR and storytelling, AR being augmented reality. Can you give the audience a little bit of a background as to what AR is and how you use it?
Yeah, so a few years ago, there was a lot of buzz, continues to be some buzz, about something called the metaverse. Everybody thought the metaverse was going to change the world. And the metaverse represented a virtual environment where people would put on a headset, and as a result of being in that headset, you would enter another world. And the metaverse has been slow to sort of catch on. Where augmented reality is different than virtual reality is virtual reality puts a headset on, so I am blocked out from the real world. Augmented reality takes a virtual set of assets and places them in my real world environment. So I have a combination of the two. So it might help me to better understand where I am, or help better understand a product, because I'm able to actually see the product within the concept, within the context of the virtual elements that are superimposed on that environment. I think we have an example queued up. I'd love to teach you a little bit about something called a hollow twin. So this is augmented reality. The idea is that this violist is not standing on a street corner in Pittsburgh. He was actually standing on a green screen in my studio. We recorded this particular violist, confusing with a violinist, but that's not the case. He would not take kindly to that.
My name is Sean Jewell, and I'm a violist with the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra.
So the idea there is that anywhere you are, whether it's in your living room, in your kitchen, on a street corner, you have the ability to hear firsthand from a world-class musician about something that's happening at the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra, and then click a button at the bottom of the screen in order to buy a ticket. So that's the power of storytelling. Instead of a poster on the street, or instead of an email blast, or some way to sort of convey that there's a concert coming up, we have the ability to take a representative of the orchestra and put them in your environment and give you a private concert through augmented reality.
That's a great example.
I really like it. I mean, it shows the street corner, and then you see that that green thing. What's that called? It's like, and then the violist appears.
Yep. You have basically an avatar. So the way the experience works is you scan a QR code in this case, or you click a link in a social media post. You then come to a splash screen that gives you some branding that helps us promote our client, in this case, the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra. And then from there, you have the ability to place your storyteller in your environment. In this case, placed him on the street corner where we happen to be standing. And then all of a sudden, he's playing the viola right in front of you and giving you a taste. So typically we sell as businesses through a variety of ways, but the most compelling way to sell is to stand in front of your client and tell them in your own language, using your own words and your body language, what makes your product or service any different than anything else. That's where augmented reality gives us an ability to take sales, marketing, training to a whole nother level. Because even though we can't humanly be in every room, with augmented reality, that's now possible.
Interesting. So you used a QR code for this Pittsburgh Symphony.
So we use a variety of ways to get people to the experiences. One way is a QR code. Those can be on posters. Those can be distributed through mailers. Those can be displayed in the corner of a television, a television ad. Those could be held up. If you scan this QR code, you'll see me standing in your living room. We also can do it through hyperlinks. The idea that we can embed a button on an email blast that will take you to that experience. We can send you a text message with a URL that will launch an experience. And that's just the beginning.
Can you, I want to make sure we leave, this is very important. You moved from New York back to your hometown of Pittsburgh, which truth be told is my hometown as well. And you really saw an opportunity because Pittsburgh is the home to so many businesses that are in robotics and sort of that fintech, science tech world. And you created a brand called Augmented Pittsburgh and have really transformed the way that the consumers have interacted with the city of Pittsburgh and a lot of their assets through storytelling and through augmented reality. Can you give the viewers a little bit of a story, your own storytelling as to how you went about doing that?
You bet. So I grew up in Pittsburgh, and then nearly 30 years ago, moved away. We lived in Detroit for a while, and we lived in the New York City area where I went to work for the New York Times and then Time Magazine, and then opened my business with an office in Times Square, and spent the better part of my career in New York City. COVID happened, and it sort of opened the door to exploration. Like, if not New York, where else would my wife and I choose to live? And I convinced my wife that we should give Pittsburgh another try. So we came for a month, and I called it the Pittsburgh test. And in order to promote the Pittsburgh test, I put my face, which happens to be all over this place if you look around, my face on a billboard and said, "Go big and go home, the Pittsburgh test." And there was a URL that gave a little more context. And as a result, people reached out to me and wanted to welcome me and sort of sell me on Pittsburgh. I had a meeting with the mayor of Pittsburgh right under my billboard. And what sold me on Pittsburgh ultimately were stories. The idea of meeting with people who were doing amazing things that I, living outside of Pittsburgh, had no idea were possible in a place like this. I learned about the robotics industry and how Pittsburgh has built a world-leading ecosystem here. And it was the stories. It was sitting across the table from Pittsburghers who were telling me in their own words about the passion they have. So I wanted to figure out a way to use technology to make these stories more accessible to everyone, because I have found, and my wife has found, that Pittsburgh has a lot of secrets, a lot of hidden treasures that living outside of Pittsburgh, even as a native son of Pittsburgh, I knew nothing about. So I started Augmented Pittsburgh, and we have launched over a dozen different activations, working with major companies like Comcast, working with organizations like the August Wilson African American Cultural Center, working with the city bike share program. We just launched a program, as I cited, with the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra. And I think our first launch really woke a lot of people up. We worked with an insurance company called Acrisure, which had bought the naming rights to the Steelers' home, Acrisure Stadium. And we worked with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette to deliver weekly previews of each Steelers game using augmented reality. All of these are activations of Augmented Pittsburgh. It's the world's first citywide storytelling platform that uses augmented reality to help people experience a city in an entirely new way.
It's amazing.
It just sounds amazing, Joe. I mean, really exciting.
What's happening now is that we're starting to get inquiries from other cities. There's some conversations happening in the city where you happen to be, in Philadelphia, about launching Augmented Philly. There's conversations going on in Atlanta and several other places that have this opportunity to help somebody who's walking down the street see something that isn't immediately apparent. And not only see it, but experience it. So that as they're walking down the street, they can hear from somebody who lives in a neighborhood, who operates a business, just what makes this particular place where they happen to be standing special. And then from there, there's a commercial opportunity. We can direct traffic towards a button on the screen that gives them the ability to go to a website, to purchase, to engage in a deeper level. And this is how we're combining technology with storytelling to take that whole experience to a completely other place.
I mean, Jeff, just think about you. If you in your own business, if you could deliver if you have all these clients and you sent them QR codes every month with a monthly mailing, and they scanned their QR code, and there you are standing on their kitchen table talking about mutual bonds, municipal bonds, and whatever else there is, it would be a completely different way to tell the story of your company, just like it was everything else. It's a very new, interesting technology from where I sit.
I mean, better yet, Jeff, that could be a refrigerator magnet that someone has in their home. They scan that refrigerator magnet every Monday, and you tell them what they need to know that week in terms of their investments. And it's not just an email that someone overlooks. It's not just a PowerPoint that someone skips past. It's you standing there using your own personal equity to deliver a message that's unintimidating, that's friendly, and has the ability to drive action through that button that's on the screen. It's revolutionary. It's storytelling without all of the filters. It's just a human being standing where you are, looking you in the eye, telling you a story.
Wow. I mean, I find it fascinating. I mean, you're walking down the street. I remember walking down the street in Philadelphia years ago, and they have those, historical society, and Napoleon's brother lived here, Joe Bonaparte. And I looked him up, and they called him Joe the Bottle because he was such an alcoholic. But you think about all the different places in a city, and then the businesses. I think what do you anticipate? Like QR codes on business doors? And I mean,
we're about to deploy an augmented reality walking tour of the University District here in Pittsburgh, where people will be able to walk down the street, learn more about the University of Pittsburgh, learn more about Carnegie Mellon University, learn more about our museums, learn more about our medical centers, things that a visitor to Pittsburgh may not fully appreciate, and things that a resident of Pittsburgh may not fully know. And our objective is to help connect individuals with opportunities. The idea is that you're walking down the street and you may have no idea that the building you're walking past actually has courses or individuals or businesses that can help you flourish in your path as an innovator or an entrepreneur. So that's where, yeah, I do think we're already bombarded by QR codes. Now it's time for those QR codes to actually pull their weight and deliver something more than a restaurant menu. Tell me a story.
And Joe, the way that you have sold in Pittsburgh, as I understand it, because you just mentioned restaurant menus, I think people, particularly through the pandemic, recognize a QR code. But today, people are like, I don't need another menu on my phone. So you branded Augmented Pittsburgh so that people, when they see Augmented Pittsburgh on a QR code, they know they're not going to just see a static menu. They know that there's going to be some element of realistic something coming to life, right? And so that's where the branding comes in, as I understand it, because I don't want to see another menu. But if the chef were to stand up on the table and to give me the specials of the day, that might be something pretty interesting, right?
Something I've learned through, and as somebody who spent a career working in branding, the idea that the Augmented Pittsburgh brand represents an experience, just like a Nike swoosh represents a higher level of footwear. Like, I think it's really important to establish, it's very important to differentiate the QR codes that are part of Augmented Pittsburgh from the QR codes that we now ignore and overlook. And branding is a big part of that.
What other cities are you gonna roll out this AR experience in?
I mean, there's no limit. Cities, countries,
Philadelphia, perhaps.
Cities. Let's hope so. I mean, I think Philadelphia is a logical place, particularly with the 250th anniversary coming up, the World Cup bid. I just think there's tremendous opportunities. A lot of people coming to Philadelphia who aren't going to know where to go to get a cheesesteak. We have the opportunity to help them make the right decision.
Well, great. Joe, I want to thank you for being our guest today. Steve, thank you so much for being the co-host. And our next week's guest is Debbie Getz, who's the president of Debbie Getz Media Connections. Make sure you tune in. I'm signing off. Jeff Watkinson from Watkinson Capital Advisors. Take care.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, guys.